Good morning, and thank you for joining me here today. We're gathered on the territory of the signatories of Treaty 7, and I acknowledge the Métis people who share a special connection with this land. Yesterday, Danielle Smith revealed her plan to steal the pensions of Albertans, a plan she hid away during the election campaign. She released a report using false and misleading information so that she could seize control of Albertans' retirement savings to spend your money on her pet projects, like hiring thousands of tax collectors for an Alberta revenue agency or imposing a provincial police force. And she plans to use Alberta tax dollars to campaign for this. Already, we see business leaders, economists, and regular Albertans lining up to oppose this very, very bad idea. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business said this would create risks and that their members do not view it as a major priority for this government. My offices and the offices of my colleagues have been inundated with concerned Albertans opposed to the UCP interfering in their retirements. Look, this scheme is a bad idea, but it's not a new idea. The UCP have been talking about it since 2019, but the idea is much older. Danielle Smith has been talking about it since 2003 when she wrote that the Alberta government does not only, as quote, have the constitutional authority to take back this responsibility, it also has the obligation to do so, end quote. She ran on taking Albertans' pensions out of the CPP in 2012, an election that she lost. So in the last campaign, she refused to talk about her plans publicly, saying, quote, "They're not in our campaign," end quote. She hid this from voters. But unlike Danielle Smith, there's another individual who has known this policy as the failure it has been for decades, and that's Jim Dinning. Mr. Dinning, as finance minister in the 1990s, did a lot to put the CPP on its current sustainable path. Back then, he recognized the importance of the CPP to all Canadians, including Albertans. After serving as Klein's finance minister, Mr. Dinning spent years making his opposition to leaving the CPP clear. In December 1999, Dinning told the media that a standalone Alberta pension wouldn't work because Alberta couldn't by law get back its share of previous contributions. He told the media 2 days later that Alberta would be stuck with its share of CPP's unfunded liabilities if it withdrew. During his campaign for Premier in 2006, Dinning said that an Alberta pension plan is, quote, is not in the top 10 list of Albertans' billion-dollar concerns. Getting out of the CPP and creating an APP, and you've got to do both. That's simply not a priority. He would go on to describe a campaign running on a policy of an Alberta pension plan as, quote, isolationist and regressive. And in 2002, Premier Ralph Klein, when asked about the idea of an Alberta pension plan, said, quote, "We examined it. The last examination was under Jim Dinning. At that time, it didn't make sense." So, Dinning's had decades of opposition to this very idea. Rather than continue to press forward on this idea, Danielle Smith should listen to the words of Mr. Dinning and leave Albertans' pensions alone. Let me assure the people of Alberta that the official opposition stands with them and will fight to protect their retirement, their parents' retirements, and their grandparents' retirements from Danielle Smith and the UCP. Thank you, and I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Okay, we'll start with questions in person and then go to questions on the line. Seeing none in person, we'll go to questions on the line. Go ahead, Dean.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. So you can hear me? Can you hear me? I hope.
Yes.
Okay. So you just said you're going to fight to protect the retirement. So the question is, how far will you go to do that? Now, if I do some journalist math, the earliest we'll probably get a referendum would be the fall of 2024. So then we have the 3-year period, puts us into the fall of 2027. May 31st will be the election. So would the NDP would have an opportunity. I don't know if they can at this late, even at that late date. If the NDP wins the next election, will they cancel this plan?
The number one thing that we're going to do to fight this, first of all, the number one thing that we're going to do is make sure that people are aware of this issue and to make sure that people are mobilized to stop it from happening. We don't need a referendum. People have already spoken. They don't like the idea. And so the first step is going to be to convince Danielle Smith that this idea is a bad idea. If it's still alive in 2027, when we're having the next election, I would absolutely love to fight an election on this issue. That's a surefire winner for us. But the most important thing is it's not a surefire winner for the people of Alberta who've had to suffer through 4 years of uncertainty to get to that point. And so we don't need an election on this. We don't need a referendum on this. We need Danielle Smith and her government to back off from this bad idea.
Is there a follow-up, Dean?
Yeah, I appreciate that, but you're hedging. So you said you'd love to fight an election on this, so that means that you would use it as an election issue, that you would cancel it, right? So are you going to do it or not?
Oh, we'll cancel it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hedge it at all. We'll cancel it. It's done.
If the NDP, based on my numbers, if the NDP wins the next election, Albertans can be confident that regardless of the referendum, that an NDP government will do everything in its power, if it can, even at that late date, to legally cancel exiting the CPP. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And again, why is that? You don't even want to see the results of the referendum?
It's gone. We're not going to support the cancellation of the CPP.
Or what if Albertans had a referendum saying we want you to pursue this?
We're not going to support it. Because it's a referendum based on lies. That's why. This is very similar to what the Brexiteers did. This is very similar where they said, oh yeah, just do Brexit and you'll get back billions upon billions of dollars. A referendum based on a lie of a $350 billion or whatever it is, $500 billion, maybe it'll be $1 trillion by the time we get there. At that point, it's just not an informed decision, unfortunately. So we trust any referendum process that Danielle Smith is going to put in place. And frankly, if it's still an election issue, then we'll worry about it then.
Okay, we'll go to our next caller.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. It's Lisa from the Journal. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Just to follow up on what Dean was asking, we'll have the opportunity to look at what the government has promised they'll put legislation forward in the fall to enable a referendum in the future. If that goes forward, if the panel comes back, recommends a referendum, and we go through with this referendum, what would you like to see in that referendum question? Because there are so many questions still up in the air in terms of what the provincial government would actually propose to do. Put the pension with AIMCO or try to set up a private service provider. There's a lot of questions here. What would you like to see in that referendum question?
I honestly haven't even thought that far. The number one thing that we need to do is make sure the people of Alberta know that any attempt to remove us from the CPP based on a bogus $350 billion number is just not true. The Fair Deal panel itself came up with a number between $40 and $70 billion. There's been other numbers around $120 billion. And so really we've got this range between $40 and $350 billion, and that's what the entire proposal to remove us from the CPP is hinging on and is built on. And so really the task for us as the opposition and for the people of Alberta who are watching are to make sure that Danielle Smith and the UCP knows they don't need to do a referendum. The people of Alberta have already spoken in multiple instances, in multiple polls, and they're speaking right now, and they don't want this.
Is there a follow-up, Lisa?
Has already started a campaign trumpeting this idea and throwing around a lot of numbers telling Albertans that they're set to benefit from a huge windfall if they vote yes on this. So, it really depends on the information that voters receive. What if you're hypothetically a low information voter, what is the NDP going to do to educate people or try to swing public opinion in the other way? Because you're going up against a pretty massive campaign, it looks like.
We are going up against a big machine that is paid for by taxpayer dollars. Absolutely. The number one thing that people can do is to reach out to us. We are getting a number of emails from lots of constituents. Each one of those is an opportunity to follow up with people, and really, like, it's very clear that when the people of Alberta mobilize, we can stop bad things from happening. We've done it before in the past, and we can stop it from happening again.
Any further questions, Lisa? With no more questions, that's all for today. Thanks.